to the 49er Access podcast. My name is Sterling Bennett, and today we are going to react to the San Francisco 49ers releasing their unofficial, yes, unofficial depth chart for the 2023 season. I want to start off by saying this. The depth chart means absolutely nothing. Like, the fact that people on Twitter are losing their mind, and I put it out there because I think it's important to have an idea of where maybe certain positions are, and we'll dive into, the big ones today: quarterback, cornerback, some tight ends, some receiver stuff. Like, you can get an idea of what maybe the team is thinking, but let's be very clear here. It's not like Kyle Shanahan or Steve Wilks are going out there and they're putting these players in these certain positions. They are not sitting down and actively creating a depth chart for the preseason. They could care less what that looks like. For them, it changes every single week, every single practice. There are certain days where Ambry Thomas is playing starting cornerback because Mooney Ward's hurt. Mooney Ward comes back. Thomas is playing second string cornerback. And that's one small example. Like, there really was no first string receivers in training camp. They're maneuvering left and right. Chris Conley's playing with the first team. Then, Ronnie Bell's out there. Like, there really isn't a first team unit for cornerbacks and receivers and running backs, really. Jordan Mason is getting first round reps or first team reps, and so is TDP, right? And so I understand your mind blowing with the fact that to see Brock Purdy, then Trey Lance, or Sam Darnold, then Brandon Allen, it makes your mind just like, what does that mean? And so many different things. I get it. But just to put it very bluntly, this means nothing. Like, absolutely nothing when it comes to the final cut day, when it comes to what this team is like. No one is saying, well, Ambry Thomas, second string cornerback, he's making the team. He gets sucked during preseason. Like, this depth chart will inevitably change come cut down day in 3-4 weeks now. And it'll change next week in week 2 of the preseason because guys are going to play bad. Some are going to play good. And it'll move up and down depending on how Kyle Shanahan wants to construct the offense and how Steve Wilks wants to construct the defense. Like, Jair Brown can play amazing and have a great week of practice next week and be this team's, really, I guess he is second string safety, but, be getting reps over George Odom with the first team in practice, right? Like, there's so many things that change and maneuver, and for fans to lose their minds over a measly piece of paper or a virtual piece of paper, electronic mail sent out to the PR from the PR team to the media and put on a website. Shanahan's not saying there being like, well, let me see. Well, Brayden Willis should be this team's fourth tight end. He's not. He doesn't care. He doesn't care at all. All he cares about is fielding 53 and on some days 45, 46 good players for Sundays, Thursdays, Mondays, and on the off day, a Saturday, come playoff time. So with that being said, with me telling you in the first 5 minutes of the podcast that today really is a nothing conversation, it means nothing, let's dive into the San Francisco 49ers unofficial depth chart. And let's start from the bottom up because I always like saving quarterbacks for last because that's what you like to talk about at the very end. And if I can get you to listen through 45 minutes of a bunch of BS, it helps the podcast. But let's start off with kick returns. Right now, doing kick returns in practice, it's been a lot of McLeod and Danny Gray and Deshaun Jameson and Ronnie Bell, and that kind of that echoes in what we've seen on the depth chart, right? The second team kick returner is Willie Snead. I will say that's kind of interesting. I don't know why he's up there. He like if you told me how could or what if he makes his team, what is Willie Snead's role? It would not be punt return, kick returns. It would be a blocking receiver, the sixth guy who might be inactive for a day. It might be a special teams player, but not doing kicks and punt returns. He wasn't doing them very often in training camp. I'm not sure why that's why they're doing that in the preseason game. But I guess they're doing that. It's not a position I see him ever playing come regular season. Brayden Ayuk took punts during training camp some days, so and I get them wanting to refrain from him putting it out there. That makes sense. But this one doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like I would rather see, if I was Kyle Shanahan and Steve Wilkes and the coaching staff, I would much rather see, McLeod, Bell, Jameson, and Danny Gray back there. Danny Gray, who has electric speed, not back there fielding punts and kicks. I understand it's not his strongest. It's not one of his strengths. And so I understand not putting him back there, but he did it during training camp a little bit. So I'm not sure what's up with, again, the depth chart, which means nothing again. But this was one of those positions where I said, is that a mistake? Like that? Oh, that's weird. But that right there is intriguing because there are two guys behind Snead who they could make this roster strictly on being a punt and kick returner. I think that job is strictly McLeod's to lose. And I think he's played well enough during camp as a receiver to retain his job on the team this year. But I think for young players like Ronnie Bell, Deshaun Jameson, even Danny Gray, if he ever gets back there during preseason, that's a place where you can kind of prove yourself with, hey, like I have a role. We've talked on the podcast plenty of times that for a young player, a rookie, most likely, that your job is to find a role. Kyle Shanahan said this during a press conference. Find a role. Like find your niche on the roster and excel at it. Work at it every single day. And I think for young players like Bell and Deshaun Jameson, this is their chance to show, hey, I can play receiver and corner and to whatever degree that is. But if I'm not great there and I'm a great return man, that could be an avenue for them to actually make this roster. But let's go to the kickers. And this was one of the other ones that said Jake Moody or Zane Gonzalez. And this one just made me laugh so hard because this was the PR team just trolling with every position that had, notably, quote unquote competition, quarterback number 2, the kickers, two guys who the team itself is splitting reps with. The or is just them, telling the media and the fans, these guys are splitting reps. That's all the or means. It is these guys are fighting and really not even fighting or really competing. Like Jake Moody's not competing with Zane Gonzalez for the kicker job. He's won it, hands down. Trey Lance, Sam Darnold, we know they're competing for that number 2 quarterback job. But Jake Moody's not competing with Zane Gonzalez. And many people asked on Twitter, why is Zane Gonzalez even on the team and why is there an or in between them if Moody and them aren't competing for the job? I thought it was pretty funny because it felt much like the fans were overblowing this. And this answer is really simple. San Francisco is hoping a team like the Dallas Cowboys, for instance, that their kicking situation sucks, which it still does, even after a long offseason and really a bad playoff run by Brett Maher, I believe was his name. They haven't figured that thing out yet. But they're hoping that some team, a sucker, right, can come in and say, hey, Kyle, hey, John, we'll give you a 6th-round conditional pick for a guy or a 7th-round pick. They want to get something for free. They want to add a late-round pick for free. That's the only reason why Zane Gonzalez is there. It also helps, and I don't think fans always look at it this way, but it does help having a veteran kicker in the room that can kind of teach Jake Moody, like, hey, in this area, the wind goes this way. And in this stadium, it's harder to kick on this left hash or the right hash, or, kind of perfect how he kicks. And again, I'm no kicking expert by any means. If any position I don't know, it's kicker, like many of us, because all you think is, oh, those guys just kick. And I'm sure there's some signs to it, some signs behind it, laces out, Finkel is Einhorn is Finkel, right? That's all I really know about kickers. And uprights, it's good. You dink it, you dunk it. It's outside, it's bad. That's all I know about kicking. If you make a game-winning field goal kick, you are on my good list. If you miss, you're on the naughty list, and you're getting coal for Christmas. I'm sorry, right? But the whole Jake Moody or Zane Gonzalez, all this is San Francisco trying to find a sucker they can get a 6th-round pick for, 7th-round pick for, and tell Zane Gonzalez goodbye. Thanks for being here. See you whenever. Like Zane Gonzalez feels like a kind of nearing that roster cut. You're the 54th man. Hey Dallas, hey whoever, you want a kicker? You need a kicker? And I think a team might bite really, because right now we're seeing a lot of offenses. There's so much scoring in the NFL now, and if you are relegated to punting on 4th down, where you can get a field goal instead and keep yourself close, like San Francisco did that this year with Jake Moody. They said, hey, yes, we're losing Robbie Gould, but we can get a guy who can make 64-yard field goals instead of punting or going for it on 4th down. Let's get 3 points and hope the defense holds up, or make a game 10-7 or 13-10 or 13-14, right? Get them a little bit closer and make them more aggressive offensively. You give it a team Zane Gonzalez who can get you a field goal from about 50 yards out, like you're living pretty good, right? And I think, again, for a team like Dallas, who just their kicking situation is awful, like I think a team might bite on this. Now, it may not happen, but if I'm San Francisco, I am hoping and praying, and I think they have a pretty good chance that a team, again, comes calling saying, hey, we'll give you a 7th-round conditional pick for Zane Gonzalez. And I think, again, that's going to happen. So, but the whole Jake Moody or Zane Gonzalez thing, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. San Francisco was not taking a kicker in the 3rd round and saying, competition, like this is not going to happen. They love Jake Moody. He's their guy. Moving off of special teams, let's stay on defense. Let's stick to the defense here, and let's start in the secondary. I thought it was pretty interesting that Samuel Womack was listed as the right cornerback number 2. He hasn't seen any snaps that I've noticed or saw at training camp playing nickel. And for him to be strictly playing outside after last season, starting at nickel to begin the year is kind of weird to me. I didn't really notice it during camp. It didn't stick out to me because he wasn't having a great training camp by any means. But I do think to see guys like A.J. Parker in that role behind him with the second team makes me go, why? Why isn't Womack playing nickel? Like, you don't have a backup nickel. It's Isaiah Oliver, and then that's it. Now, they're assuming that Womack will just slide back inside with ease. But for a young player, not having played that position a lot in the NFL, I would like to see him get some reps there. That does intrigue me because Isaiah Oliver, if he goes down, it's literally nothing behind him with experience. Again, there's Mooney Ward, Lenore, Oliver, Womack, Thomas, and Jameson. All 3 of their backup cornerbacks, Womack and Thomas and Jameson, have all played outside during training camp. Like, those 3 guys are in the lead to make the team right now. They all played outside. And it doesn't mean they're bad. It doesn't mean that, I don't want them playing outside. It just means that you don't have a backup nickel cornerback. And, last year they got lucky with, when Womack got benched and Jimmy Ward got hurt, they can kind of maneuver things around, and Gibson was playing so good, they had to find a place for Jimmy Ward to start. And that was nickel. And he was really good there. And it sucks he left, but he's gone now. And so that does kind of weaken the nickel cornerback room. And so with no one behind him with a lot of time in the NFL, little experience, I have not loved what I've seen from the cornerback room in training camp outside of really 4 guys, that being the 3 starters and Jameson. Thomas and Womack have been kind of a mixed bag for me. Sort of see none of them on the depth chart, and we'll see come preseason games what actually happens. But to see that they aren't listed there now, I do want to say this: when roster cuts do happen and rosters kind of dwindle down to what is it, like 60 or 70 soon, then it's 53 later. We might see that shift happen, but for right now, just keep that in your mind. This team does not have a backup nickel cornerback that has played ever in the NFL besides Womack, and he's playing outside on the depth chart. So keep your eye on that. That intrigued me. Ambry Thomas is the opposite corner to Womack on the left-hand side with the second team. That makes sense. They've been splitting those reps a lot with the second team this year in camp. Then Deshaun Jameson on the third team. This right here, this is the player I have circled on my board on my what are you going to do come game time, because he's a player that will get punts and kick returns, but he could be this found gem of an undrafted free agent. In the draft, there was guys like D. Winters and Beal Jr. and Ronnie Bell who were like late round studs. Deshaun Jameson could be that. He's shown the growth, the willingness to learn, to teach veteran players. I really am intrigued what he does. I would love to see him actually get to start. Now, let's also be honest here. First string guys this week are not going to play most likely. So, Womack and Thomas are going to be that second team. Jameson is that, becomes that second team. So second team becomes first team, third team becomes second team, and you go on from there, right? And so Jameson is going to get tested against second team guys, which I guess in retrospect are just third team guys moved up. But either way, I'm talking to myself through it as we go right now, either way. But still, I want to see him tested. I want to see what he can do in man coverage, because if you add another good man coverage corner in this room, we are cooking with oil, at least on the outside. And I like that, to see we have depth on the outside in this room. Last year, Lenore was unproven. Mosley got hurt. Jimmy Ward got hurt. Womack got benched, believe after week 2 or week 3 against the Carolina or the Broncos. So depth is always a great thing. No Dante Johnson this year. He's not saving the day playing nickel and safety and outside. We need these guys to step up, and I have those, Jameson, Thomas, Womack. My eyes are on and glued to them this Sunday against Las Vegas. The defensive line's a little more interesting. The defensive tackle room is where I had my eye at, because we know that Kinlaw, if he's healthy, makes the team. Hargrave, Armstead, they make the team. Then it's a bunch of other guys, Marlon Davidson, T.Y. McGill, others in there as well. I'm forgetting right now, but my eyes and my ears when I'm hearing about Kalia Davis are not good. Been injured all week, hurt all last year, didn't practice at all through training camp, I believe, or at least this past week I've been there. Didn't practice before the team left for Las Vegas, and we'll see if he actually practices or plays in Las Vegas at all this week. If he doesn't, he's behind the 8 ball big time, because I don't think he'll be a player they stash for sure. I don't think he's making this team. He has not shown enough when he's on the field, and he hasn't been on the field enough to actually show anything. You cannot put together 2 practices and go, yep, I made it. And so for him, I think to me, there's a kind of an X question mark of are you getting cut? Are you a stash guy? He feels like he's going to be stashed this year again, which that's 2 years in a row for a young player like him. They knew that was going to be the case last year, but this year I think they actually wanted him to contribute, and I don't think that's going to happen, at least early in the year when guys are healthy. But I do want to see if he does indeed play on Sunday against Las Vegas, or is in these joint practices. What is he doing out there? Because right now it's a big fat, look out, Kalia Davis, and it's not in a good way. It's in a bad way. Moving forward to the edge room, this one, it didn't bother me, but it does concern me, because Nick Bosa isn't back yet, which is fine. Do your thing, Bosa. Go get your money. Go get paid. Get your dollar bill, y'all, whatever you want to call it. I don't care, right? Go get your freaking, back at the Brink trucks to your house in Florida. Do whatever you want. You're going to get paid and we're going to love it, right? But looking at the room without Nick Bosa in it, I said, oh, that's not good. On paper, that's really scary. Because, again, Nick Bosa changes his stuff. And yes, the interior guys, Hargrave, Armstead, Kinlaw maybe, others on the team as well, they will impact what the edge rush room does opposite Nick Bosa. But if Nick Bosa, let's say Nick Bosa gets hurt this year, God forbid, like if he does, sound the freaking alarm, wee woo, like we're like, uh-oh. But let's say Nick Bosa is hurt. Let's say it's one game. I do have a little bit of a worry because I'm seeing guys like Kerry Hyder and Alex Barrett who've had good camps thus far, veteran players, but seeing Alex Barrett, it's like his 5th year in the NFL, great camp, mind you, but seeing him as this team's 2nd string outside edge rusher, that's concerning. Seeing guys like Austin Bryant, who I get was injured, but I think has flashed a lot more than Barrett has in his 2 practices back. He has wreaked havoc on the second team offensive line. To see him in the 3rd string, I said, okay, that's interesting, but okay, maybe it's an injury problem with him. And then seeing Beal Jr. and Taco Charlton on the 3rd and 4th string, Taco Charlton, late addition to the roster. I get that's probably where that comes in. But then Beal hasn't practiced. He's been hurt, and that doesn't define you as a player by any means. But seeing guys who I've seen flash, like if I told you this year, we're going to have Drake Jackson, Austin Bryant, Alex Barrett, Kerry Hyder, Beal Jr., and Taco Charlton as our defensive ends, you would say, wait, what? But then go, oh, but then also Nick Bosa's here. Like Nick Bosa's just name on paper changes your entire thoughts on the room itself. But seeing the depth chart and how weak it actually is on paper, at least, without Nick Bosa, like this team is banking on a lot of second-year jumps and reclamation projects to take the next step or kind of refine their career. Clellan Ferrell's in that group as well. Like, you can bank on that stuff and it can work, and it has. Chris Kosaric can, turn a piece of poop into gold, right? And so I don't want to discredit them now, but just on paper, which, again, means nothing, especially this one, means nothing when it comes to actually playing. And I do like a lot of the depth pieces they have, Bryant, Ferrell, Jackson. But seeing Alex Barrett and Kerry Hyder in the second team, I said, that I don't like that. That bothers me. Like, I don't want Kerry Hyder and Alex Barrett as my second string, even third string guys, really. Like, I want Kerry Hyder playing inside and outside on certain days. I'd rather have Taco Charlton higher upside, Austin Bryant higher upside than Alex Barrett. No offense, Barrett. You're just a guy who I think we can stash, not lose, if you were cut from the team this offseason or during preseason, excuse me. And so, is it a big deal? Not really, but without Nick Bosa in the room and the injuries that are currently on the team, there is some concern with the defensive line, in my opinion. Now, that can go away in a week when they're all healthy and Nick Bosa signs an extension and we're saying, yeehaw, yippee-ki-yay, whatever. But I think right now, leading into the preseason game 1, seeing Kerry Hyder and Barrett as this team's number 2 and second string defensive ends is like, wow, this room is not as deep as I once thought it was. Moving to tight end, because we all love a good tight end. I love a good tight end. George Kittle, we know what's happening with him. But seeing Charlie Warner and Ross Dwelly above Cam Latu and Brayden Willis, the way they were ordered just kind of felt like veterans and then the draft pick order after that. But I would have liked to have seen them reward Brayden Willis with how well he's played, with maybe third string reps, not fifth string reps. Now again, second becomes 1, third becomes 2, 4 becomes 3, and 5 becomes 4. But we talked a lot throughout training camp. Cam Latu has not been a 4-string tight end. He's been a, you kick the road, Jack, kind of tight end. And I would have liked to have seen them reward Brayden Willis with, he's had a couple big catches. Granted, there was a play in last practice where Shanahan kind of got onto him. They were kind of talking and kind of was telling him, you need to be here and you're here. And that's just being a rookie in the NFL, kind of figuring things out, learning the offense still. But Brayden Willis has shown a lot more promise early than Latu. And I would have liked to have seen that, just on paper alone, which again means nothing. I would like to have seen that rewarded, whether it's above Dwelly or above Latu, just seeing, okay, we're on equal playing ground here. And that was not the case on paper. But I also am intrigued by what Cam Latu does, because if what the depth chart says, he'll be with Brandon Allen as his quarterback and guys like TDP and, more likely LeBourne and McNichols as his running backs. And so it'll be interesting how the offense works itself out, because as you can see my dog behind me on YouTube, but you can, I don't think that sets them up for success, which could be a better test. But Willis has played a lot more with Purdy, which shocks me that he wasn't higher on the depth chart, and Latu's played more with Lance and Darnold. And I think seeing them this low, based on what we expect from them or are hoping from them, I didn't like that. But I also expect Dwelly or Warner, one of those guys is going to be gone this year. Or at least, unless they stash a rookie tight end, which in that case, it's not Latu, because draft status saves you in this case. But I don't think it should by any means. Moving up to receivers. Receiver group number 6. Danny Gray, Ronnie Bell, SMU, and Go Big Blue in the group 6 on the depth chart for these two players. I found it kind of funny because these guys are fighting for that 6th spot, and I get that. But when guys like Chris Conley are ahead of you and veteran players, which I preferably don't think Chris Conley should make this team. He feels like another player you stash on the practice squad as a veteran player, because I think you want to keep the upside. You can always inactivate somebody. Right? You can always inactivate somebody. Don't be afraid to have a Tevin Coleman guy this year, like Chris Conley. I think that, to me, would be his role. Alex Barrett, Chris Conley, those guys are kind of all in the same group to me of veteran players who aren't good enough to make the team, but good enough to hang around for a little bit. That's what Mohamed Sanu should have been in 2020. He's not good enough to be on the team, but he's good enough to hang around. He knows the offense pretty well. I don't trust them come game time. Too many drops by Conley. So to see young players behind them, like Gray, who's a 3rd-round pick, mind you, and Bell, obviously a late-round pick this year, I get they are fighting for that 6th roster spot in the receiver room. I think Gray kind of already has a job. Again, Debo, Ayuk, Jennings, McLeod, and Gray, those are my 5 right now. And so to see Gray that low on the roster was that's interesting. Unless they view someone like Chris Conley, who's gotten plenty of reps with the first team in the slot, unless they view him as kind of this veteran 6th guy, come in, big-bodied, slot receiver. If Jennings gets hurt or, his drop problem finds itself again like they did last year, this season, maybe he supplements him. I don't know what the thinking is right now. We haven't played a preseason game yet or even had joint practices, which happen tomorrow, or when you're watching or listening today, Thursday, August 10th. But I found that intriguing, the fact that Danny Gray wasn't hired, knowing his draft status, knowing how good he's been in training camp thus far. And for Bell, he's fighting with Tay Martin and Chris Conley and some other guys, Willie Snead. Like, to see those guys ahead of him on special teams and in the receiver room kind of made me say, huh, like, what is the thought process here? Is it when the guys are signed? Is it the assumed role or just veteran status over rookies? That can be the case. The PR team makes these, not Shanahan, not Wilkes. But I did think that was a little intriguing because they're not fighting for a roster spot, at least Gray isn't, in my opinion. But Bell certainly is. Like, he makes sense there, but not Danny Gray. And this doesn't make me think that they're down on him by any means, but it did make me say, why isn't the guy you drafted in the third round a year ago that's played really well in camp, why is he not higher on the list? Then running backs, very straightforward. Mason, TDP, Chris McCaffrey ahead of them all. Bing, bang, boom, call it a day. But the quarterbacks, the Trey Lance or Sam Darnold, this is where the fans, their hair catches on fire. They lose their mind. They just like, why is it like this? Why isn't Trey quarterback number one? What do you think? Like, it bothers me so much. Like, fans cannot let go. Certain fans, not all fans, just cannot let go of the idea that Brock Purdy is this team's QB number one. Trey Lance didn't get a fair shake. I want to tweet about it. Shut up. Like, God, I love Trey Lance. I like Trey Lance. But the fan base makes me just like want to be done with it. And I love you guys. I'm part of you. I get the frustration. I put out a tweet today saying if Brock Purdy has these stats, would you be happy? Everyone said, yeah, it's great. Oh my God, yes. Like, we want these. This is an amazing year by by Brock Purdy. Oh my God, this is a Super Bowl winning season if we have these. And I sat back, and I'll read them to you right here in a second. Interesting that when I ask you, hey, you want your quarterback to have a 67.5 complete wouldn't. When I ask you, hey, do you want your quarterback to throw for 4? That makes sense. 26 touchdown passes, 5 interceptions, almost 400 rushing yards, 355 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown, and 1 fumble. And they said, yes, we want that. You know what stat line that is? 2017 Alex Smith. This fan base, which I love, no hard feelings, that is saying Brock Purdy's this team's starter. Yeah. They'll settle for Alex Smith 2017 who got benched a year later for Pat Mahomes. And I'm not even saying I don't want that kind of season. Low turnovers, like a 5-1, TD to INT ratio. Love that stuff. Love it. But it's just funny how the quarterback conversation has changed. That what San Francisco wants in 1 year, Brock Purdy comes in, tears it up, deep passes downfield, explosive plays. Well, what about Trey Lance? It's like, who cares? What Sam Darnold's here now too. And it's like, yeah, but Brandon Allen. It's like, do you guys like not know what Purdy did? Like, don't take it from me. Don't take it from national media guys or whoever you listen to or watch. Take it from Kyle Shanahan. Like, he called him the real deal. We're not worried about Brock. He'll be fine. He's the real deal. How much more clear-cut do you need it to be that this team right now, as constructed, does not view Trey Lance, Sam Darnold, or Brandon Allen as quarterback one material, but simply view Brock Purdy, the man who won 7 games last year, was better than a career year from Jimmy Garoppolo, and has shown more than anything Trey Lance has done, albeit injuries, that, he's a starting quarterback. And you've seen this team put up 33 points a game could have won the NFC Championship, and you have people on Twitter saying, but why isn't Trey Lance quarterback one of the depth chart? No. Do you hear yourself? There's nothing wrong with being a fan of a player. I myself, growing up, had a Jerry Rice Raiders jersey because I loved Jerry Rice so much. I had a Priest Holmes jersey from the Chiefs, Dante Culpepper, Tiki Barber. I had a Plaxico Burress Super Bowl champion jersey because I loved him so much in Pittsburgh and New York. My very first Niner game was the Giants and the Niners in 2007 with Cody Pickett playing quarterback, and I rooted for the Giants because they had my favorite player at the time, Plaxico Burress, prior to Gore exploding on the scene in San Francisco. Like, it's okay to be a fan of a certain player. But when the fanboy bubble overtakes all logic and reason, it makes me want to pull my 26-year-old head of hair just out to just go onto the Bay Bridge and just jump off and go, see you later. Like, and look, like, I'm not going to do that, obviously, but it's like, Jesus, guys, like, you're getting mad at what a PR staff put together. Yes, we can talk about it. We can debate Danny Gray, Ronnie Bell. Why is this guy there? It's interesting. And sure, it's interesting because we want to see what these guys can do. Can they move up that depth chart? Are guys going to move down that depth chart? Is the depth on the chart with the defensive ends a concern? That's fine to discuss. It's fine to debate with Trey didn't get a chance and all that stuff. The fact that some people are mad that Trey Lance isn't quarterback one after, unfortunately, getting a shot and getting hurt and Brock Purdy stealing the show. People are mad the coach has bought in, the players have bought in. The idea that Trey Lance isn't getting a fair shake is a bunch of hoopla, hooey, BS, kaput, whatever you want to say, a bunch of, like, it's just nothing. Do you blame Kyle Shanahan for what happened to Trey Lance? Maybe a little bit. You're running too much. Sure. But that's what he was going to do anyways. He didn't trust Trey's arm last year enough early, so he ran with him. He got hurt. It sucked. You can blame Kyle for it. That's fine. I think Trey was on a level of running more per game than Josh Allen. That's insane. I get that. But you also can't blame Kyle Shanahan for looking at Brock Purdy and going, man, 7-1, really 7-0, took this offense to new heights, played very well in training camp, albeit last practice wasn't that great. Can you blame him for buying into that? For literally almost running the offense perfectly. Brock Purdy ran the offense as good as a Shanahan offense has been run since MVP Matt Ryan. I don't know. Look, Purdy could suck this year. He could. And that's why Trey should make the team. That's why Sam Darnold's also here. That's why Brandon Allen's here. But the fact that fans expected anything more, it just baffles me. I hope Trey comes into Vegas, has an amazing joint practices, has an amazing preseason game. I hope he annihilates that Raiders defense. I hope Sam does the exact same thing. I hope Brandon Allen I want to put up 56 points against the Raiders. Big money, big points, and just say, you are not in the league with us. You're the worst team in the AFC West for a reason. Well, I guess Denver's there, but you get my point. Like, we are in a class of our own from QB1 to QB4. Show that on Sunday in joint practices. But there are literally people complaining on Twitter, X now, I guess, that Trey isn't one. Why is Why does it say or after his name and there's Sam Darnold's there? It's almost like they're fighting for a number 2 quarterback job. It's almost like the same thing you've heard, but choose not to believe from beat writers and people like myself, which, okay, don't believe me, believe literally the other 14 beat writers there every single day saying, hey, it's a quarterback competition for quarterback number 2. Not one. Like, the deniable, like, the people just are living in denial with the quarterback room. It's crazy. And again, if Trey plays this year, go crush it. Let's go out there and let's sling that ball around. Let's show why you were a 3rd overall pick. It's still in you. You've had a great camp. You really improved. You look a lot better. If it's Sam Darnold, which, cool, I'm not really enthused about, but why couldn't he have an Alex Smith-like resurgence with, some consistency at head coach and GM with the offense around him? Why can't Kyle Shanahan be his Jim Harbaugh? Why? All you need is someone to believe in you and a good offense around you. You can do some things. Sam can do some things. And if he's out there, let's go get him. Let's prove why you're on a bust. Let's go out there and get him. Let's go out there and let's see less ghosts and no ghosts. And let's go see some actual people, not living creatures, not dead, passed away ghosts, right? And if it's Brandon Allen, go out there and prove why you were Joe Burrow's backup and why you shouldn't be anymore. Let's go out there and crush it. The depth chart for quarterback looks exactly how it's supposed to. Brock Purdy, quarterback number 1, 7-1, 7-0 really last year. Trey Lance, the incumbent, knows the system. I think should be quarterback 2 as of right now. Then there's Sam Darnold fighting for a job, being good some days and kind of finding himself in the realm of mediocre most days. Then there's Brandon Allen. Like, people thought it was going to look any different. No. Even the PR team that may or may not even like football was like, yeah, this makes sense. Like, come on. The fact that I've talked for 20 minutes about this is just insane to me. I'm blessed to do that and complain about people on Twitter and X and social media saying dumb things. But let me just put it this way. We have to live in reality sometimes. And I get the fact that Trey, like, this is the real issue here. This is why the Trey versus Jimmy was so crazy and why now it's Trey versus Purdy. It's so crazy and Trey versus Sam is so insane because we were promised something as fans. The high expectations placed on Trey Lance to come in, unseat Jimmy, didn't happen. That was never the plan by the team. You lose in the championship game, fans are like, you should have started Trey, beat the Texans, rah! And it's like the team itself didn't want that. That's fine. Next year, 2022, being last year, that was the plan. Trey comes in, gets hurt. What we were promised, the expectations were super high. It was ripped away from us. And we're sitting here 3 years into the unknown, thinking that, hey, maybe the picks that were moved for him could have helped us in other areas. In my mind, I think of, hey, our secondary was awful at cornerback in 2021. Imagine if we had, I don't know, first-round pick there. What if we had Asante Samuel Jr. there? Wouldn't that be something special? Like, that's where my mind goes. Wow. Mooney and a Samuel Jr. and Lenore and Thomas, like, it would have looked a lot better. Maybe you beat the Rams because Kupp and OBJ have 300-plus yards between them. I get it. There's frustration because what was promised hasn't lived up to the hype yet. What was, sold to us has not, like, their end of the deal hasn't been completed yet. And I get that. The issue is, this is the NFL. It's real life. It's not Madden. It's not fantasy football. It's like sometimes you just get a bad deal. Sometimes what you're sold and promised isn't the expectation. Sometimes you go downstairs for Christmas
and you see that package. I know what that is. It's a PlayStation 5. Oh, I can't wait to open that up. Here, this is a better example here. I believe it was 2003. Scooby-Doo, the movie, Freddie Prinze Jr., Sarah Michelle Gellar, Matthew Lillard, came out. Loved it. I was a little kid. Oh, I couldn't wait to buy it on VHS. Remember those things, VHS? Christmas or my birthday, one of those at my grandparents' house. I saw a box from my sister. I said, oh, I know what that is. Oh, I know what that is. It's Scooby-Doo. Oh, man, I can't wait for it. I open it up, and guess what? It's a box that freaking rocks. And obviously it was a joke, but my point is that the expectation was we're getting Scooby-Doo. We're getting the gift we have wanted for a whole year. Back when you had to wait for a whole year for a movie to come out on DVD to go buy or VHS to go buy. I'm waiting for so long, I saw it on film in the theater. I saw Trey Lance at NDSU and on draft tape, and I was like, oh my goodness, I loved it. It was so great. I want to get it home to me on San Francisco at my house, plugged into my DVD and my VHS player, and I can't wait to see him in the red and gold and go out there and throw passes to Debo and you can Kittle. Oh my goodness, it's going to be great. You get the box. It's here. It's finally here. You open it up. Oh, it's a box of rocks. He has to sit for a whole year. Are you kidding me? Man. Then you realize under the box, under the rocks is the actual present. Oh my goodness, it's Scooby-Doo. Man. And then you open it up, and in the old wrapper they used to have the VHSs in, it's not Scooby-Doo. It's Hurt for a whole year. And you're like, what the heck is going on? Like, I was sold Scooby-Doo. I was sold franchise quarterback Mahomes 2.0 and Trey Lance. And my God, I've gotten freaking Scrappy-Doo. The heck is this? Like, I gotten, TMNT 3 where they're in Japan with samurais. What the heck is this? I don't want this. I've got Ant-Man 3. Ugh, it is gross. And you're sitting there like, well, maybe it's in there somewhere. Like, okay, but then someone else comes along and gives you the gift you want. That's Brock Purdy. The gift you want might not be Trey Lance. It might not be what Kyle Shanahan thought Trey Lance was going to be. You brought somebody in, and that analogy could have made no sense, and that's perfectly fine. It is 11 p.m. on August 9th on Wednesday night. We're having fun here talking Niners, but like sometimes what you want isn't, or sometimes what you expect isn't what you get, and that's okay. Whether it's in person or on a freaking depth chart, it's fine. There is so much more to be played at. There are 3 preseason games that have to be played still. There's joint practices starting today, Thursday, when you hear and see this. Just be patient. Like, don't overreact when you see a box of rocks with a gift under it you don't notice yet. Sometimes the gift under it is the Brock Purdy, and the box of rocks is Trey Lance. Sometimes the box of rocks is Alex Smith, and the gift under it's Patrick Mahomes. Like, this is the NFL. I just watched that Johnny Manziel documentary on Netflix. It was great, by the way. Like, the Cleveland Browns thought they were getting a franchise quarterback. Instead, they got a drug addict, an alcoholic, and someone who didn't watch a single second of tape. They got the white Jamarcus Russell. Like, that's insane. Sometimes what you're expecting isn't what you're getting. That's okay. But you retool, you rework, and that doesn't mean Trey can't be good. It doesn't mean if he gets a shot this year, he's garbage and he's a bust. It just means that sometimes what you think is going to happen doesn't happen. And sometimes life takes you elsewhere the long way. That long way could be for Trey to come back this year and play and be great. And we go, wow, we have a real quarterback competition now, Purdy and Lance. Lance could be awful. Purdy could be awful. And we're sitting there saying, we got freaking Sam Darnold. Oh my God, what the heck's going on? All that to say,
It's a piece of paper that Kyle Shanahan didn't make himself and that you and I shouldn't care about. It should not matter. It's irrelevant to any quarterback conversation, any quarterback discussion. What's on paper doesn't always tell you what's going to happen on the field. And look, can we just enjoy the season? Can we enjoy joint practices, which half of us aren't going to see? Can we enjoy preseason on Sunday against the Raiders? Then week 2 and week 3. Like, Trey Lance should not get cut. He'll make the team. And for all intents and purposes, he'll probably play this year. Purdy gets hurt. Let's just sit back, relax, and enjoy a likely really, 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 really good Niners team this year. Let's debate cornerbacks and kickers and, the dreaded or in between someone's name. Let's debate that more than the quarterback conversation is so annoying. We know who QB1 is. There is no other team in the NFL, no other team debating who quarterback 2 is but this one. That's insane. That is just crazy. The Lions aren't doing it. The Texans aren't doing it. The Browns aren't. No one's doing it but us. We've had hour-long podcasts on quarterback 2 and quarterback 3 when we know who quarterback 1 is. Isn't that crazy? It just blows my mind sometimes. But look, joint practices today when you're watching on YouTube on the audio version. If you want updates, my takes, updates on the team throughout the entirety of preseason, follow us on social media at 49ers_access is the Twitter. 49ers.access is the Instagram. Use our promo code 49ersaccess at SeatGeek.com and save yourself $20 off your first purchase to any Niner game or concert you want to go to this year. First time purchase, 20% off. Discount for you, helps us. Get it, buy it, got it, good. Also use the Fanatics link above up the screen on YouTube or down below in the description to support the show while also buying your favorite players' merch. If it's a Jerry Rice Raiders jersey, go out there and do it. Do it. If it's a Christian McCaffrey Niners, do it. If you want to freaking buy, I don't know, a Jim Drunkenmiller shirt, go out there and do it. Do it. Use the link. Support the show at fanatics.com. That's all we ask. That's all we ask. I also ask you one more thing, actually. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, leave a review, tell your friends about the show. We're having fun here. We're talking Scooby-Doo and rocks and presents and Trey Lance and Purdy. You ain't getting this conversation anywhere else. Anywhere else but right here on the 49er Access podcast. My name is Sterling Bennett saying until next time, stay faithful.